Hi and welcome back. As you all know, I've been working on this model house for almost a year and a half now, and probably for the last half dozen episodes or so, I've been working on trying to finish up the outside. Looking through my list of outdoor tasks, I came to a shocking realization. I had completed them all. Or, well, all the big ones. There are still a decent number of small little things to do here and there, and that's what I'm going to spend this episode working on. By the time we're done, the outside of the house should look complete. I'm really excited for that. It's been a long time coming. First of all, I never fully finished the roof. I talked about why this was in the shingle installation episode, which if you haven't seen will be linked in the description. But to summarize, I ran out of materials, and the additional sandpaper and fasteners I ordered have only recently arrived. Off camera, I've manufactured a bunch more shingles from this material. And while this went smoothly for the most part, I ran into a little bit of a problem at the end. This new sandpaper is colored differently than the original stuff. I'm a bit annoyed by this, but I'm not willing to wait a few more weeks for more, so I'm going to go with it. Maybe I can come up with a clever solution to this some other time. In order to install the shingles, I needed to get the roof onto my workbench. I'll rest the back of the roof on some lumber to keep the weight of the roof off the gutters. Those are a bit fragile. Then I can install the rest of the shingles. After both pitches were covered, I could install the ridge. This is a bit different than the rest of the roof pitch. I'll take some shingles and cut each into 3 smaller pieces. Then I'll use them to bridge the distance between the final courses on the 2 roof pitches. As I install more of these pieces, they'll overlap the previous pieces, hopefully making the final roof weathertight. In the place where the roof changes pitch, I'll split the shingle in half, with each half on a different roof pitch. The final shingle I'll glue into place with some super glue. And here's the finished roof. Next up, I need to do a few things to the porches and deck. Let's take a look at one of the porches. If you look closely, there's a sort of mesh I've applied across the surface. Let me show you close up. I'd always planned to screen in these porches, and I got all the materials months ago to do it. In fact, I even tested how I was going to do it on this porch, but quickly realized I wanted to show all of you this process too, so I held off on doing the other porch. That's what we're going to do now. Once I got the other porch off the house, I could start to measure the mesh. I got this stuff at my local fabric store, and it looks a lot like miniature aluminum screen close up. I'm really satisfied with it. I took measurements of the porch and transferred them to the screen. After cutting out the screen, I laid it in place to see how it fit on the porch. And then I could glue it to the structure. It looks like I'm making a real mess with the glue, but it dries clear and it's not all that noticeable. On my first attempt, I discovered that attaching the mesh to all the horizontal members really was important. In this way, the mesh acts like sheathing and makes the porches more dimensionally stable. Another thing left on my list is to affix the deck to the house in a more permanent fashion. Since I installed the deck on the house months ago, it's slowly been falling off. I've braced both it and the porches using random bits of wood and clamps, but it's time to figure out a more permanent solution. Here's what I've come up with. I decided that something like Velcro would be the most durable, but I hate how the hook side of Velcro tends to get stuck to arbitrary things and gets covered in a layer of lint. I discovered that 3M makes a product that's similar to Velcro but doesn't have this problem. There's only one type, and it has a mushroom-shaped profile that allows any two pieces to lock into each other. And it has a really good adhesive on the back. I'll use this stuff to install the porch and both decks to the house. Notice how there's a gap in between the porch and the sill of the house. Because of this, the porch won't stick to the structure. So I attached some material on top to fill the gap. This stuff worked really well. The porch is attached quite nicely to the house. Now, I'll follow the same process to attach the deck, too. Here's what it looks like with both of these attached to the house. I still haven't attached the final porch to the house, however, and that's because there's still a bit of work to do on it first. All the mesh is solidly attached at this point, but I still need to lay down a roof on top of it. Now, in an ideal world, I'd start out by laying down a few sheets of plywood, but the sheet you're looking at right now is my last full piece. So I'll have to make do with some of the offcuts I have. The roof probably won't be as strong as it could be, but I guess it is what it is. Using offcuts requires me to be much more creative. All the joints are not at 90-degree angles, and in many cases I have to custom cut pieces to fit. Just take a look at this. Quite a lot of questionable joints on this roof. From this point, I followed the same process as I have with the roof on the full-size house. I first applied a drip edge. Next, a moisture barrier. Side note, I got a chance to talk to a roofing expert and he confirmed that a moisture barrier isn't required over the whole roof, but I'm going to include one just so that everything matches across the whole house. Then I'll install tar paper. And finally, the shingles. I already showed you how I install shingles on the main roof pitch, and the process was identical for this roof. Now, with the porch complete, I could install it. The last thing on my list was to figure out a bit of the roof section that I've yet to address. My house needs a soffit. Soffit is a bit of material that covers the bottom of the eaves of the roof. Normally, soffit attaches to the subfascia on one side and extends to the house on the other, usually attaching to a piece of dimensional lumber against the house. This is a situation where I've painted myself into a corner a little bit. First, doing this would mean that the roof would then be permanently attached to the second floor, which goes against my philosophy of keeping all the floors and roof separable. Secondly, I made a few of the windows a bit too high. If I installed the soffit as recommended, then the soffit material would bisect the window in two vertically. That wouldn't work. So this is my not great compromise to this issue. First, I'll cover the sides of each outside rafter with siding. Then I'm going to attach plywood underneath each eave, paint it, and attach it to the house. But honestly, do you really want to watch me nail more plywood? I've already done enough of that in this episode, and I think you probably just want to see what the outside of the model looks like now that it's complete. So let me show you. Wait a second, that's not finished. Yes, I know. There are two clearly incomplete pieces. First, one of the gable ends is completely bare. I haven't covered this over because I need to be able to continue to access the attic, and without this big hole, I wouldn't be able to. The second incomplete project is the bay window. I just don't know what I want to do with it yet, and I'm planning on finishing it up when I eventually build out the kitchen. Other than those two projects though, I'm pretty sure the outside is finished. I have a feeling that someone's going to point out something I missed, because I very well may have. And I wouldn't be surprised if I end up working on the outside of the house again, fixing up anything I overlooked. But I'm done for now, and my focus will now be turning to the inside. In particular, behind the scenes for the past few weeks, I've been thinking about how I want to wire up this house for power. I've come up with what I think is a really good way to do it, and I can't wait to get started on it next time. To finish this off, I want to fill you in on what my plans are for this project going forward. I really haven't done that yet, and I figured now's probably a good time. I've been working on this thing for almost a year and a half now, And I feel like realistically this is a project that could never end. There's always going to be little things to do here and there. And with people suggesting things in the comments, the project just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And while this project has been an amazing learning experience for me, both with building the house and also documenting the process, I feel like I want to move on to something else at some point. I've got a couple other projects lined up that I've been thinking about working on for probably a couple months now. So here's my plan. Next, I'm going to work on the electrical inside of the house. That's something I really have been wanting to do for a while, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. After that, I think I'm going to take a break for a little bit. Doesn't mean I'm going to be stopping the project altogether, but I think what I'll likely do is I'll start working on something else kind of in the foreground, and occasionally jump back onto this and maybe work on something if it seems fun or something interesting comes to mind or something like that. Now, the other side of this, and something that I feel like a lot of people probably wouldn't talk about, is this house series has done decently well. Like, I made it, I really had nobody who was interested in it, and now there are some people who seem like they think it's cool, and I think it's cool that I'm making something that people like. So I do kind of feel like I'm letting people down if I stop working on this for any amount of time, or I really take too long of a break. And I know that's not how I should be feeling about it. I should be working on what I want to work on. I have control over what I'm doing, but it is kind of a nagging feeling in the back of my head. So I guess all I can hope is the project I work on after this is as interesting as the house was. I don't want to go into it exactly quite yet, but I'll give a hint. It has to do with machining, and it has to do with making a decently large object out of metal. So, it should be exciting. I'm quite excited for it. So, anyway, thanks for watching, and hopefully that was helpful. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. Both the outside of the house and also, in general, my plans for the future of this project too. So, thank you. See ya. Bye.